here we are then. We've looked at all the films and we've discussed all the releases, and I think I can quite confidently say that I am the person who has discussed Dripping Blood Theatre more than anybody else in the world, including the people who put the DVDs out. But was it all worth it? What have we learned from this experience? And are my crazy dead of night conspiracies true? Let's have a look, shall we? Let's start by looking at the dead of night angle. I still think these were put out either after or alongside the Dead of Night DVDs by the same company. We mentioned this box in the intro episode, identical to the Dead of Night one, and even though it could just be some downloadable template or something, it just seems too coincidental to me. The logos look like they came from the exact same graphic designer, especially if you start looking into the shock horror box set as well. And then we have what's on the disc, a collection of royalty-free films terribly crammed two to a disc without any remastering. And then there's the spelling errors on the cases and the shoddy prints. It all just screams Dead of Night to me. It might still all be speculation from my part, there is no hard evidence, but along with the numbering on the spines and everything that I've mentioned, I can't see how these two releases weren't put out by the same company. Alright then, let's have a look at the films themselves. Did Dripping Blood Theatre manage to release anything worth your time? Well, in my opinion, there is only one good film in this collection, and that is A Bucket of Blood, which is the surprisingly engaging comedy horror from Roger Corman. There was also Track of the Vampire, but I believe there is a better way to watch this film. As we discussed, it's been chopped and changed quite a lot. This is a TV edit and it's the last iteration of this film. There is an Arrow box set out with all the versions on, and I reckon there's probably something worth watching in there. Track of the Vampire, maybe not the best way to watch that film. And the worst film of the collection has got to be Revolt of the Zombies, which is on the first disc we looked at. And at just over an hour long, it was one of the most difficult sitting experiences I had with this entire collection. So, as I said in my previous episode, I have a best to worst list of all these films over on my Letterboxd if you follow me. Just Old Man Chimes if you want to look me up. And you can get a heads up on some reviews that are coming out and just see what I've been watching recently if you're interested. Let's discuss the anomalies on the discs. Outside of the spelling errors and terrible prints, we also ran into the strange border on 3 films, which turned out to be an animated intro that they completely forgot to animate. Don't know why they bothered including it really, it wasn't needed in any way. Then we have the scene from Night of the Living Dead that's just slapped in there in front of a film, which I've been racking my brain trying to figure out why. My only guess is that they were planning to release it, as I'm pretty sure it's not had copyright for a very long time, but they didn't get around to it. Whatever the reason, it's bizarre. And then the biggest blunder of the whole release in my opinion was having the first 20 minutes of Blood Creature be so out of sync it made it completely unwatchable. Quite a few anomalies there for only 5 discs. Seems like they just didn't give a shit, and it seems like they got worse as they went along. So one thing that I don't think I've mentioned yet, that's kind of interesting, is that very similar to Dead of Night Collection's shock horror box set, Dripping Blood Theatre has its own collection box set of all 5 discs. Dripping Blood Collection, it's known as. And no, I don't own a copy of it. 1, because I already own all the films and the crap, and I don't want another copy of them floating around. And 2, I am not paying these prices for it. That is absurd. And the same can be said for some of these other releases as well. The Blood Creature DVD, which is absolutely butchered and doesn't work properly, goes for outrageous prices online. Do not pay these prices for these films. In fact, don't buy these films full stop. These are not worth your money. While I was reviewing Dead of Night and Vipco, some films cropped up that were pretty decent, and at the time of the review, that was the only way to see them, through those release companies. There's only 2 films, 1 or 2 films worth watching, and they have better releases. So Do not collect Dripping Blood Theatre. Do not waste your money. It's not worth it. One last thing that I don't think I've mentioned really is how draining it was watching 2 of these films back to back. I did do that for every disc, watch a film, write up a little bit about it, then straight on with the other, and all of these films suffered from pacing issues, which meant that you'd get to the end of one and you'd be like, oh no, I've got another one to watch. I wouldn't recommend it, and it was pretty horrible. So let's sum this whole thing up, shall we? I think that I have talked Dripping Blood Theatre to death at this point. So, I definitely think that there is a connection to Dead of Night. I wouldn't say that the films are worth watching and the releases are not worth owning. Have I learned anything from this experience? No, because I knew they were going to be shit going into it, and they were shit. I wasn't pleasantly surprised or anything. They were about as crap as I expected, so no, I've not learned anything from this whole thing. Let's move on to something good, shall we? For those with a keen eye out there, you may have noticed a little collection growing in the background of these videos. And yes, they are going to be my next review series. I hope you've enjoyed your time talking Dripping Blood, and thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next series.